stars. Yeah.
Good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for August 12th, 2019. We'll begin with a special order calendar.
Sorry, I'm not ready.
Item number 1. You ready, Madam Chair? I'm sorry.
No.
Okay.
I had the May calendar open, which is not very useful. Okay,
Item
sorry.
number 1, 15673BZ, 1975 Eastchester Road, the Bronx.
There we go. Okay. A sample, we requested this, a sample lease rider to allow recapture of parking spaces with 30 days notice was provided. This should be the standard lease rider going forward. It's a pretty short rider. Photos and plans were provided showing the location of the recapture signs. There's actually 4 of them. I thought, when we talked, I thought there were only 2, but there's actually 2 different entrances.
Right, so I think they have provided photos of all the signs that are on the exterior and also in the interior.
Right, and then the floor plan that shows 2 sets of recapture signs at 2 entrances. So. Okay, any other comments?
I'm satisfied.
Yeah.
Item number, I'm sorry, may I go forward?
Yeah.
Item number 2, 98283BZ, 19120 Northern Boulevard, Queens.
A cover letter was provided to clarify that the only action being sought here is to modify the site plan to remove new Lot 11 from the approval, from the variance. Lot 11 must qualify, therefore, with the underlying zoning going forward. Lot 12 is therefore reduced in width, so Lot 11 is part of an apportionment, right, to 116 feet running in the east-west dimension. The north-south dimension's variable, so I didn't actually want to give that. And that's the area to be devoted to the accessory retail parking space being used by Lot 27. The history of variances that were provided, because that was our question, showed 10-year terms being applied to the site consistently at every renewal since 1946 under both the old BZ application and the new one that was created for 11, 411, and 412. So we have to continue the 10-year term, right? Okay.
I have a, this is something I picked up on my site
Madam Vice
visit.
Chair, can you pull the microphone towards you?
This is something I picked up on the site visit, the parking lot that is there on the remaining portion. There's barbed wire along the frontage, so maybe when we do approve it, we can make that a condition of that being removed.
Right, okay. Okay. Ready?
Item number 3, 13887BZ, 21836 Hillside Avenue, Queens.
Just a second. Okay. We last heard this in October of 2018 with 2 adjournments since, and it was adjourned prior to that, so it's taken a long time. A cover letter was provided stating that improvements have been done as directed, but for the most part, the photos are rather non-descriptive, or I thought illegible. I really would like them to resubmit clear photos. Also, one photo reveals a dumpster, which wasn't shown on the plans, we weren't aware of, that's outside of an enclosure. So an enclosure needs to be constructed and provided and shown on the drawings. And I also was looking for photos of the landscaping and ground cover that we had talked about at the last hearing that was not provided. We have an old photo from way back, from the initial submission, that shows like a couple of lonely trees fenced in on 2 sides. So what we really should be getting is a complete set of photos that are taken all the way around the perimeter, looking at the perimeter and also looking back into the site, and for just so that this doesn't go on indefinitely, because I'm concerned about the applicant's ability to provide us with those things. I'd like our compliance officer to investigate the site and provide those photos. So if we could ask Ted to put that on his list, okay?
Item number 4, 15706BZ, 2856 Steinway Street, Queens.
So nothing was submitted on this, and it's adjourned, but I don't know if it's administratively or,
It was administratively adjourned, but we received the letter from FDNY saying no objection.
from the community board?
No, from
No,
FDNY.
oh, from fire
Yeah,
department,
this
okay.
morning, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Item number 5, 163 to 16514A. This is 502, 504, 506 Canal Street, Manhattan.
Right, we had requested that they update all the materials because it had been so many months since between the submission and our hearing. So we received updated affidavits from the tenants stating that they've had no damage and how they're alerted during flash flood warnings. And we received updated flood insurance policies, but I noted, and we asked also for an update on the escrow accounts. The escrow accounts are supposed to be $25,000 for each unit, and it's only $37,000 in total. So actually, the escrow accounts are too low. I didn't see two accounts, like, that somehow or other in a flash of a moment, it went from 25 to 37.5 in interest, which, like, what is that? But I don't think that's the case. I think it's a combined account, and it's under what's required. And they still haven't cleared up the alteration type 1 or 2 application that's holding up the C of O issuance.
thing, yeah. New cases, item number 6, 18614BZ, 5163 Bond Street, and 252-270 Skirmahunt Street, Brooklyn.
Okay, there are no notice requirements for extensions of time. Building photos show it's well under construction. They should provide a construction timeline and one requisition for payment, the last one, to verify the degree of progress and to tell us how much time they need to complete. Anybody else on this? No?
Continued hearings, appeals calendar. Item number 7, 2018-47A, 45 Case Avenue, Staten Island. This is administratively adjourned. No submission was made.
But you know, this is there were 2 postponed hearings, plus, and it, like cricket, so no comment out
I
there.
emailed about a week and a half ago. I didn't reach out again, I'm sorry, but I emailed them, told them it was administrative adjourned because I didn't receive anything, but was there anything going on? I didn't receive a response, so.
And you didn't even get a response. I know that it's August, but really?
Yeah.
Because it's effectively not being prosecuted, and it's a vesting application. Either you vest or you don't vest. I think this is one of those situations where if we have contact information for the owner, we should be sending counsel and owner a letter saying, we don't really understand what's going on here. The application seems not to,
Well, there were issues with whether it was a vesting case or not. Vesting.
right, exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this started first hearing was supposed to have been February, right? So,
Well, there was a notice thing that was in.
right, but so you don't do notice, the second hearing also was postponed, something strange.
Zoning calendar, decision item number 8, 2018-52BZ, 159 Borum Street, Brooklyn.
Okay, we asked that they coordinate the materials, that was done, plus to indicate clearly on the site plan where the additional 25 parking spaces are, that was done. And we had decided there was no need to amend the restrictive deck because the language in the deck covered the situation.
Do you need to sit here?
Sorry, anything else?
We noticed a typo in the EAS in the project description. We noticed a typo in the EAS in the project description. It says 85, it should be 90.
85 more.
85
parking spaces.
No,
Are being provided.
no.
For Borum.
This is Borum.
Yes.
Just a second. It's supposed to be 65 spaces at
Plus
Borer,
25 off-site.
65 plus 25.
plus 25 off-site.
And they added it up to 85 instead of 90
Oh, okay.
on their project. It's very minor, it'll take a
Yeah,
minute.
but I wish.
But they've been apprised of the typo,
Yes.
right? And they're submitting the new EAS?
Yes.
Strange. Okay.
Move on to the next one?
Yeah.
Or you finish notes?
No, it's okay.
Okay. Item number 9, 2018-55 BZ, 222 Johnson Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay. This one, they did increase the number of parking spaces to meet demand, plus the 25. So that's a total of 87 spaces now. We did ask them to revise the restrictive declaration because this site is not maxed out in number of units, and so they add a sentence to the restrictive deck, which I think covers that possibility. If they increase unit count, they're gonna have to come back to us to add more spaces or whatever, depends on how it works out. I didn't find that there was a coordination problem, but maybe, did you? No? Okay. Okay.
Okay. Continued hearing items, item number 10, 4311 BZ, 1926 East 21st Street, Brooklyn.
Okay, plans were revised to lower the roof at the third floor so as to render that not floor area. That worked well. The rear yard incursion to 24 foot 10 inches at the first and second floor, and the low attic was discussed at the last hearing as being justified by the 15-foot rear yard apartment buildings that are directly to the rear. I'm saying that just as to clarify why, because most of the time we don't. We want to have a further setback at those higher floors. Okay.
Move on. Item number 11, 2017-288 BZ, 17-10 Whitestone Expressway, Queens.
We last heard this application in November, which gave the owners time to work out with neighbors an agreeable solution vis-à-vis the aesthetics and lighting of the parking garage. We now have a strong letter of support from the neighbors. It's wonderful when owners and neighbors can work like that. Drawings have been revised to show the improved landscaping and wire mesh screens and trellis systems that will be installed to encourage ivy to creep up the face of the building to shield neighbors from light and cars. Neighbors are not objecting to the pole lights, which started off this conversation, and the lighting designer represents that the pole lights meet code while the bollards and wall washers will not. I have no comment on whether that's the case, it's just the representation by their consultant. Anybody else?
I had a question, and the lighting representative had mentioned that the New York City Code requires open parking be illuminated from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. to a minimum of 1 foot candle. The proposal is to reduce it after business hours to 2.2 foot candle, and then that will be further reduced to 1.54 foot candle. So my question is, why can't it be reduced to 1 foot candle? And because that's what the code requires,
Yeah,
allows.
right.
So that's just a question I have.
Right. Yeah, if you can step down, right?
To what the minimum
Yeah,
is.
not even sure why it has to be lit if the
I think more for
garage is
safety,
closed.
security, probably.
Maybe for
reasons.
fire
Yeah,
department?
I would think so.
Okay. Okay.
Item number 12, 2018-25 BZ, 109 Wortman Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay. The applicant continues to argue that the board should not be requesting parking demand studies for these special permits. I first have to remind the applicant that such permits are discretionary, and that in addition to making the findings for the permit itself, the application also has to satisfy the 7303 general findings that go to the impact of a special permit on the community at large. Our BSA council prepared a report of the board's actions with respect to parking reduction special permits. 35 of the 4774-44 special permits granted since 1983 provided parking studies. It's not when I say report, it's really just going through the resolutions and making a chart. So I don't want to make it look like it's some kind of huge research. It was just something the applicant could do too. Go through the resolutions and make a chart, as opposed to picking out 4 resolutions, which is what they did, to support their argument without actually looking deeper into the resolutions. I frankly find it rather audacious for the applicant to question the board's standards of review. This is not a ministerial action. Furthermore, the board is entitled to modify its approach to special permit applications where it sees that there is a reason to do so, and in particular where, for example, conditions change, such as an observation that roadways are crowded and street parking scarce, or illegal parking common in a neighborhood where there is a lot of new development in process or anticipated. And as stated at the last hearing, there is obviously a difference between adapting an existing building to meet parking demands and construction of a new building on a site that is wide enough to handle both a curb cut and front entrance, such as this 40-foot wide new construction site in this case, versus the 4 locations that were described in the resolutions provided by the applicant that are 25-foot wide and 30-foot wide sites where the width of a curb cut means you don't even get a fire egress. You get one door in. So it's a completely different situation in that kind of way. And I say all this not to say one way or the other about the review of the parking, but to set the record straight that there's a reason we ask for these parking studies, and we are certainly entitled to do so. And I want to add that if we were to adopt the applicant's argument that the board has no authority to check on the parking demand, the board's granted of an application, for example, to reduce by 500 parking spaces to facilitate development of an enormous medical facility in an area where 99% of the on-street parking spaces are occupied during all peak periods, and which facility has no access to convenient public transit nor public parking garages, would be completely irresponsible on our part. So I just need to get it out there. We require demand studies and parking, on-street parking analyses and so on. Getting to the heart of this case, as discussed at the last hearing, the operational plan doesn't match the drawings, which is what I said at the last. It says that there will be 2 to 3 doctors working per day and only 1 doing surgery 2 days per week, but there are 10 exam rooms and 5 operatories. So I'd like them to explain what all of these rooms are for, if not for additional doctors. I mean, I just have to say, I used to be a medical office designer. I know exactly how the offices are used, how you move patients, how you load them up, and so on, and how many doctors need rooms. So you have far more rooms than you can handle with 3 doctors. And so, and also they're saying they're only seeing, I think they said 48 to 50 patients a day. If it's 3 doctors, that doesn't fill the 10 exam rooms. So I'd like to understand also where prep and recovery take place, because before you go into an operation, there's a prep room and there's a recovery room. Otherwise, you can't turn the surgeries over quickly enough. Also, the operational plan states that there is a potential for the 2 to 3 doctors to see up to 72 patients a day. Yet the statement of facts and all of the parking studies look at the counts of 48 to 50 patients. So I don't understand that. In these days of insurance, the doctors have to make that 72 patient mark. Otherwise, they can't make their income goals, unfortunately. So the operational plan states that the hours are 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. which sounds like a late start to me, given that other doctors' offices try to accommodate working patients' early morning needs. So I'd like them to explain that. Doctors' offices now see people at 7 in the morning, or even earlier sometimes. On the parking study, which then goes to other kinds of conflicts about on-street parking and so on, people maybe haven't left the parking lots, the parking spots. Maybe the parking studies aren't really being done at the peak times. Also, on the parking study, let me see, what I'd like to understand what the presumed overlap time is for parking demand. We're told in the operational plan that standard exams take 1 hour while surgeries take 3. So how is that reflected in the accumulation study? So somebody who comes for a 3-hour visit is still there, right? And the accumulation seems to be indicating people are coming in and out within that same hour. So I'm not sure that the parking study is reflecting the operational plan. I think instead it's just using some of the standards they presumed from the other sites, not understanding that this site has supposedly known quantities of patients, doctors, and staff. Feel free to jump in if you want to.
Oh, yeah, I had a question similar to yours because they are basing this new parking study on the 2 sites in East New York, the Linden Eye Care that's on Linden Boulevard, and I forgot where the other one
Sutter.
is. Sutter.
Yeah.
And they say the major difference is that this new site is actually going to perform surgeries, but they don't really talk about the impact of performing surgeries on the use of cars to come to the site, use of personal vehicles, right?
Right. Yeah, I agree. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. I can go on, or if you wanted to add something
No.
on that subject?
No,
Okay.
I think my question was just that the catchment area for the subject site and the catchment area for the 208 for Linden, is it the same in terms of the patient?
Is it the same catchment area? In other words, is this sort of like a duplicative facility? And so people might go to one for eye exams and the other one's for a laser or something like that.
And then that questions of why do you need so many exam rooms?
Right, okay. And I also wanted to know, again, because this is what I used to do for a living, is there a proposal to rent out the other exam rooms? That's a standard methodology for doctors who have too many exam rooms. You end up getting 2 or 3 non-same discipline doctors because you don't care, you just rent it to somebody, right? And as long as there's a sink in the room and that kind of thing, it's good enough for any kind of medical facility, right? And then the other is the report ignores the number of staff in accounting and billing. It's not mentioned at all. Those 2 or 3 staff, which sounds small, would be nurses. They're not the people at the front desk. They're not the people in accounting, which of course with insurance you need tons of people to do that kind of work. Also, I note that the on-street parking study observed double parking and illegal parking in the study area, and somehow or other that's just ignored. So you would have to say, well, what about within a very short walk of this location? Is that where the illegal parking is? Because this will just exacerbate it. Now we'll have triple parking. If the illegal parking is a quarter mile away or something like that, that's a different question. And then to pick up on Commissioner Otley Brown's comment, that there are surgeries suggest more accompanied drive-to and wait trips, because most people who would go to a surgery don't go home by themselves, right? And if this is a place where people have cars, then people will park the car, wait in the waiting room, and then take the person home, as opposed to, picking them up in an Uber or something like that. Also, for everybody who's had an eye exam, you're fairly blind by the time you get out of an eye exam. You're seeing, stars, rainbows, like you can barely walk straight. So most people stay a long time or are accompanied, because otherwise basically you fall down the stairs. So I don't know exactly how that's being figured into this analysis. And then on the Linden modal split data, I'd like to understand what accounts for the significant swing in auto share from one visit, one observation day on April 30th, it was 22% auto share. And then on a couple of weeks later in May, it was a 4% auto share. So, you know, as a data cruncher, I would look at that and say there's something faulty about my data. How can I go from 22 to 4 in the course of a week, other than that the week is a holiday week, or the doctors were on vacation that week and there was only one person seeing patients or something like that. Plus, also at Sutter, there were 35 in-out trips at 10 a.m. Also on April 30th versus 7 on May 2nd. It's again, something's off, and I wouldn't be surprised if the practice was, you know, doing the equivalent of medical inventory that week, you know. So, and I also like to understand how that data compares to the census data for the reverse journey to work and any other things, so that you can check you're using the right splits. And then I'm trying to understand the difference between the survey-based recent study and the DOT standard study, and the reason for the 30 space difference in accumulation. Because the last time we talked, there was a 36 space demand, and now we're down to a 6 space demand. So if I look at the table, the survey-based trip generation is 100 person trips per 1,000 square feet, while the 2018 trip generation based on DOT is 103.4 persons per 1,000 feet, so 1,000 square feet. So it's hardly a noticeable difference. And if you crunch the numbers the same way, you should come up with the same demand. So then what's the thing that's different? Is it the modal split data? They need to explain why there's such an extreme difference. Any other comments on this?
I mean, one positive thing of reducing demand to 6 spaces is that now they can easily put it in the cellar.
Right. And that's the other thing is, you know, we don't look at the costs of the parking. That's developer's choice, especially when it's a new building. And we have seen, you know, because we see so many projects with parking. In one case, right, we had a case for a new housing project where they wanted to have automated parking for 4 cars. And then finally reduced because of waiver issues, it was automated parking for 2 cars, right? So it can't be that it's such a terrible thing to do this, and it drives into a little box and then drops down and slides, right? And we actually have another case like that where, I forget what the name of the program is, but it slides around like one of those puzzles, and it's pretty brilliant. So you can fit a lot of cars in a space as long as you have this contraption that gets you down and moves the cars around.
No, the one that you're referring to is the one on Fort Hamilton.
Yes, right. And what I forget is the name of the mechanism. They said it was called like a Dewey parking system or Dalton or something like that, which is, and when you look that up, you learn it's that kind of puzzle that fills in. Okay.
The other part of this is they did say that the ramp, once the ramp turns around, it doesn't have enough of the radius
Right.
to accommodate. If the ramp were to start right from the property line, then you may not need to have the ramp to turn around. You might be able to you have a longer run, so that may address the need for the turnaround space.
Or, as we've seen on another project, and in fact, I'm wondering if it was that Bond Street. No, it was that one across the street from the supermarket next.
The one on Main Street, on Roosevelt Avenue.
Remember the supermarket? It's Pineapple, or it has another name like that.
Cup tomato?
No. It was the supermarket that was really, really busy all the time. And so we were really concerned about the parking garage that would have so much traffic waiting to make right turns into the parking garage.
It's Coney Island Avenue?
Yeah, I think so. But, and the name of the supermarket, I forget, but it had a name like Pineapple or something. So what they did was they showed us this incredible system that uses a turntable. And they were able to show that they can, once the car drives onto the turntable, the entire operation takes like 30 seconds or 12 seconds or something crazy. So you could also do that with this, you know, that they would drive in straight and there's a turntable and then it directs the car into the right space. So you don't need a ramp at all. You have a turntable, which is arguably much less money than having that puzzle system. So, you know, lack of ingenuity on the part of the developer isn't really our domain, right? Okay. Okay.
Item number 13, 2018-56BZ, 83 Coleridge Street, Brooklyn.
Okay, they requested an adjournment.
Item number 14, 2018-95BZ, 120 MUM, Brooklyn.
Sorry, just a second.
Such a seeker, right?
Secret's finished. It's closed. We have sign offs.
Right, we have everything.
I'm sorry, lots of notes.
I'm in for seeker.
Okay.
Still not happy with it.
We're waiting for the revised DOB determination. There were additional waivers that they need to request. I think the applicant's been very responsive to our comments now. In particular, the bulkhead has been moved to the interior of the site, which is a much improved condition relative to the appearance on the street where there was this big bulkhead within the setback before. I just want to verify that it's permissible for the second and third fire stairs to not terminate at the roof. Only one staircase is terminating in the roof, and I just don't know whether that's allowed. So it's just for fire department's benefit. It's the central stair terminates to the roof, whereas the two stairs on either side are not. They terminate at the top floor. And also that they have to verify that there will be no access to the roof except for maintenance. So the roof is not an active roof. The elevator is not shown as stopping there. They need to provide an actual roof plan. A roof plan cuts through the staircase, so it's taken at like an elevation of 5 feet above the roof, so you can see what's going on inside the stair and in the elevator. And then the last plan is the roof of the bulkheads plan, so they're missing the roof plan. The parking spaces for 2 vans and a side yard landscaping have been added, which is what we requested. Elevations are provided showing material changes and greenery, but I don't see in plan how this will be accomplished or even notations about it. There are kind of sections that sort of show that there's some kind of a planting thing, but it's not worked out. They need to be much clearer. This was all done to respond to concerns we expressed at the last hearing about the fact that they're not complying with the aggregate street wall width. This is a really long building, and it was built illegally on the second floor, right? And for the existing building, and the addition is non-complying by 3 feet and change in terms of aggregate street wall width. And also there are planting requirements that, because there was the actual building was supposed to have been set back to allow for planting, so this kind of planting the facade, which can be quite nice, is a way of addressing a building that's very aggressive in the neighborhood size-wise, right? So they need to provide details showing how the planting and the setbacks will be handled and indicate the conditions on the plan. So the drawings they actually need to think about it. It's going to, I'd like to make this a requirement. With respect to the aggregate street wall width, it's the third floor that is 3 foot 4 inches wider than the maximum permitted, but it's the second floor that needs all the waivers, which was illegally built. And I'm just wondering in terms of the shuttle service, so there's 2 kinds of vans. One type is to go to the group homes and pick clients up and bring them to this place, and those vans are really part of the operation of the program, and the vans mostly live at some other place. But one of the things, because the site is far away from public transportation. The purpose of the shuttle van was to go to the subway stop and on some regular schedule to pick up during peak times for families who are visiting and so on. And I'm wondering whether we should have a restricted deck to require that, otherwise there's no way to enforce, or let's say acknowledge the regular van pickup for the visitors.
I just want to correct one. There is a subway station stop right in front of the building. It is probably those who are using the facility may not be using the subway
Right,
system.
yes.
So I just want
So I'm sorry, it's a shuttle bus from the parking garage, because many people will drive to the site is what was discussed. I'm sorry, it's a shuttle bus to the parking garage. Yeah, in fact, I wrote that, but I didn't say that. Okay. So I think a simple restrictive deck requiring that a shuttle bus be provided. That shuttle bus with some kind of regular schedule, which they don't have to tell us, but it has to have a regular schedule. And then we do have approval of an E designation for hazmat and DEP sign-off for noise and air.
Item number 15, 2018-141 BZL 110 3768 Drive, Queens.
Adjournment was requested.
Item number 16, 2018-154 BZ 966 East 24th Street, Brooklyn.
Drawings were corrected with respect to the retention of existing walls, but the versions we have are somewhat corrupted. I don't know if everybody saw that. There's like this opaque bar that sits on top of the wall, so you can't see the windows or anything, so they need to send us a corrected drawing. And also, the difference, they use shading to discern between new wall and existing. The shading is it's not legible, so you can't actually tell which is which, other than the fact that there's this corrupted bar now. So they need to pick a different kind of a legend and show it in the legend. And if the rear wall at the second floor is being retained at the existing location, well, I don't understand why it's being shown to be removed. They should explain that. It may be a structural reason, but I'm not sure. Or it may just have been they didn't think of it, because they recently moved it back to that location. We directed at the last hearing that the height of the building be brought back down from 36 feet to the existing height of 34. Now it's at 35. I don't understand why we're splitting the difference. 34 is 34. So all the other houses are 34, so I don't see why this one can't function well at 34. Elevations continue to be mislabeled. Maybe they don't know when you look north. So it's the elevation that faces in the direction. So if the elevation is facing south, that's called the south elevation. It's not if you stand in front of the building and you look north, that's the north elevation. You're looking at the south elevation. You're standing on the south side of the building. Because they're all of them are reversed. And then the hatching on the plans, there's a lot of hatching on the plans. It's not explained in the legend, but apparently it indicates the new area to be constructed, or maybe it means new floor area. We asked that at the attic, the ceiling heights be indicated, and they weren't. So they should use a different code if that's supposed to be reflecting ceiling heights. I wasn't really sure what the hatching was doing at the attic level, if it was supposed to, right?
I was trying to figure that out. Also.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing I find so funny. You use a code, but then there's no legend, or it's not consistently used. Anybody else?
I had a question, actually. On the statement of facts and the plans, they show a proposal to reduce the non-compliant side yard, the 4-foot, 2.5 side yard, to 4 feet. And the special
really?
permit doesn't allow that.
you to do that.
So if they could clarify what they're doing in that non-compliant side yard.
That's the right side yards. 9'4" and 4'2". It says,
And then they have in there,
the drawings show existing is a 9'9" and a 4'2", and they propose a 9 foot and a 4'2".
and then one of their zoning analyses
Oh.
They say it's 4. And I think also the plans they show that it's a width of 4. But if they could just clarify what the
Yeah.
widths of the side yards are.
Right. They
It's
should,
inconsistent.
they should provide a survey if we don't already have one, and just show us, because it obviously has to stay whatever it's shown on the survey. Okay.
Item number 17, 2019-15 BZ, 7940 Cooper Avenue, Queens.
Sorry, say that again? 7940?
7940 Cooper Avenue,
Okay,
Queens.
yeah, sorry, okay.
What the heck is something like this? Something else.
So this one actually happily helps us with another one. So on the threshold question of applicability of this 73-19 special permit to an after-school program for children 6 years and older, the applicant obtained a ZRD1 from DOB indicating that that use is accessory to the 1210, the zoning resolution section 1210 daycare program, i.e. school. And the thinking behind it is that during the day, it's being used as for kids, little kids, and so in the evening, or in the later hours, to be using it for older kids, it's not considered the principal use, it's an incidental use. And the submission was otherwise very limited, given that we had so many concerns about access to the site and safety. Only the site plan was provided, which has people walking first on one side of the driveway, and the driveway that gets you closest to 80th Street, I guess. So you walk on one side of the driveway, and then you have to cross in front of cars to the other side at this crossing place, because the sidewalk on the left side is inadequate to just begin on that sidewalk. So the concern was about people who walk to or from the major intersection and the bus stop locations at Cooper and 80th Street to the daycare. And DOT needs to, that hasn't responded to applicants' explanation that the reason for that curb cut is egress by emergency vehicles. So I find that explanation a bit dubious, frankly. Many parking lots rely solely on two-way curb cuts as their sole ingress egress. Their explanation was that an emergency vehicle would not be able to make a turnaround, or they'd have to back up and make a three-point turn. I mean, isn't that what they do? So I didn't understand that at all. I think they just like the idea of a loop. But the loop is creating, DOT expressed concerns about too many curb cuts. They're on a anti-curb cut kind of program now, because curb cuts are the places where pedestrians and cars mix in unfortunate,
Circumstances.
sometimes fatal ways. So I'd actually like fire department to take a look at their claim. And when they say emergency vehicles, you know, they mentioned ambulances, but ambulances have as much turning capability as any kind of a car. Lots of people drive cars almost as big as ambulances, right? So, anyway, so, and then July 25th, DOT comments were provided that the applicant needs to respond to. There were also June 18th comments from school safety, which we discussed briefly at the last hearing, and applicant provided a response on July 15th, but I don't know if DOT has had a chance to review that. They're not referring to it. One of the things that's a little confusing, and maybe we could ask all the agencies who are doing these kind of reviews to please refer to the submission date, because I can't tell whether these things cross in the mail, right?
Sometime for this case, the applicant went to DOT, and there's been a lot of conversation between DOT and the applicant where we weren't the liaison.
Okay.
So, but then they were sending us the comments, so
Okay.
that's why that happened.
So, but if they could
Yeah.
do something like saying, in response to applicant's submission of this date
Right, okay.
and further conversations with applicant, we, right? So at least we know that the thing that crossed in the mail, for example, was reviewed or wasn't reviewed, or something like that, right? And then the applicant's the same. The applicants should be saying, in response to DOT comments of this date and further conversations with DOT as of X date, here's our response. That way, I think we spend a lot of time reviewing these things, and then we find out, oh, they actually all had a conversation, and, you know. We still don't have air quality or noise for the question of rooftop play area as an appropriate use. We have air quality and noise from the inside, but not whether or not it's a good idea to play on the roof. We're still waiting for hazmat, apparently. And I see there's a trash enclosure, it's now shown in the parking lot. This is a site that has food. And so there should be refrigerated trash storage on the interior like we do with all the schools. Especially you have, you know, children walking in the parking lot and then there's like stinky garbage right near where you parked your car. Not nice.
So I had asked initially what happened to ensure the safety of the after-school program students when they're arriving and departing, and they answered that they are accompanied by either an adult or an adult caretaker. But could they give me a little more detail as to the operations of that? Because, like, for instance, when my daughter worked in an after-school program, their after-school program sent a bus to the schools to collect the children and then brought the bus to the after-school program and unloaded the children and signed them in. So if they can give me that kind of detail, that would be helpful.
Right. This is for kids up to what, about 12 years old? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Right, so few to none will arrive on their own, right?
I don't think any of them
Yeah.
arrive on their own according to them, but they
Yeah,
should
okay.
give us more operational detail.
Okay. All right.
Move on? New cases, item number 1, 2017-324BZ, 85th Avenue, Manhattan. It's a PCE.
This is a legalization. It opened in February 2018. We have proof of service of initial application to officials, a notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. And in addition, the lobby was posted with a notice of hearing for the neighbors. Community Board recommends approval. We don't have DOI and need it. And I didn't find any sign of that form being submitted. It wasn't in here showing the form being submitted. The fire department did provide a letter of no objection and inspected and so on and issued violations. With respect to the sound attenuation, the floor plans have different shading for different spaces, but there's no legend to describe what these mean, what the materials are. It's the never-ending story of legends and codes without
You want A plans?
explanation. What is it? The legend, it says, this kind of floor is different than that kind of floor. That's nice. How? Why? Is it acoustical? What's it doing? Cut sheets of the sound attenuating materials were provided, just like in a vacuum. Here's a bunch of stuff, have a nice day. Where is it? How is it used? How, you know? Okay.
I had one question, and that is, the zoning chart states 78,240 square feet is the total floor area, but that actually is the total commercial floor area in the building, which is in the zoning chart. I understand the need to have the total, but if they can just put like an asterisk and say of that PCE is X square footage. Typically, that's, I think, what we have seen in the zoning chart, so.
And when we look at the zoning, it's gross. I mean, when we look at the
Zoning.
PCE, it's gross floor
Gross floor
area,
area,
right?
right.
So, according to this, it's 7,550 square foot, gross square foot PCE. It's on the second floor, so it's all arguably zoning floor area. Got it. Okay.
Item number, may I go on? Item number 2, 2018-19BZ, 119 West 23rd Street, Manhattan.
Okay, this is also a legalization and it opened in April of 2018. We have proof of service of initial application to officials, but I didn't find notice of hearing. So, and I looked in lots of places. I didn't find. However, the lobby was posted with a notice of hearing, and I fear that the applicant may have thought that that's adequate notice, but it certainly isn't meeting our rules. Community Board recommends approval. They need to provide a first floor plan to show the means of entry and egress. We don't have DOI. Fire Department issued a letter of no objection, again stating that the, let's see, they issued violations on standpipe and sprinkler, but the fire alarm tested out properly.
I had similar comments.
Okay.
I had a question about signage. Is there signage at this site?
I didn't see it.
Oh,
There was a twisted banner, but I couldn't read the twisted banner as to whom it belonged to.
That's not very good signage if you can't read what the sign says.
It blew in the wind.
No, DOI is a separate.
It's a purely commercial building, so
Yes.
there were really no specific signage for anything except for the museum of, it's a museum of banners or advertisements. something
Oh,
like
and
that.
poster museum. It
Poster
just
museum,
opened
right,
recently.
There's a poster
Yeah, yeah.
museum, I didn't even see
Yeah,
it.
no, it just
Now I
opened
need to
like,
go and check
I
it
don't
out.
know, 6 months ago.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Okay.
Okay. Item number 3, 2019 7BZ, 3341 Country Club Road, the Bronx.
Okay,
This is
we-
a school.
Maybe. Therein lies the question. We have proof of service of initial application to officials and proof of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. Community Board recommends conditional approval, but I don't really understand what the condition is. I think it means they approve on condition that the project doesn't change or something. I really didn't understand. I could read it, but I just, it says, should the application change, we ask that you disclose any and all changes to our committee, right? So I think that's the condition. We have 4 letters in support. I think actually there's a threshold question on this application. The site is owned by Westchester Country Club Land Associates with a contract to sell to another private owner known as Fordham Waterfront Holdings, which is not a direct affiliate of Fordham University. Neither of these entities is a college or university for which the 73-121 special permit is available. Well, I do understand that the intention is to eventually transfer ownership to Fordham University. The university is not an applicant or co-applicant, a contract vendee, a long-term lessee, or otherwise. So what if the university chooses, for example, not to accept the donation? I know we have a letter from the university in support of the application, but that's not necessarily the people who decide whether to accept property. There are times when an institution will decide not to accept a gift, and then there's times when people say, we thought we'd give it as a gift, but we changed our minds, right? So in the event that such a transfer cannot occur while this review is in process, there is another special permit under section 73-123 for what are known as non-commercial clubs, which is the way this is being described, to allow such use in an R2, and which may be more appropriate given the current facts. So applicant should go through its findings and demonstrate that the project will meet them. Otherwise, I actually didn't have any comments. It's really just a threshold question, and this is a type 2 action, renovation of an existing facility, so there's no seeker review. Anybody else?
I had some questions with regards to the condition of the site and the future layout. One was that there's a school to the left of the site and there's a residential use to the right of the site, and there's a chain link fence that is between this. The trees are tall, but the ground is at eye level, it's pretty bare. So I think when this use is proposed, I would suggest they provide a much more opaque buffer between the school and the resident. And the other question I had was the storage of the rack or the cradle. Will it, for the
all the boats.
For the boats, will it be outside the building? Will there be additional ones that will be outside the building? And if so, will it be visible from the abutting properties? And we didn't receive any photos of the interior, so I really didn't know. This was just based on my site visit, so. And they had mentioned there was a prior BSA resolution on this site?
Yes.
So if they can provide that.
Yeah,
if
and
there's any
I actually got
conditions,
it, yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I got it so we can put it into the record. It's really about the Westchester Country Club that wanted originally to install a swimming pool
Right.
within a short distance of the residence, which needs a special permit, and they got that permit, but then they never installed the
built it, right.
pool, right?
I just wondered if there were any conditions there that would be applicable to current site.
Okay, I can actually maybe tell you that, but okay. Any other comments?
I want to make a comment about the community board. I called them last week to clarify their letter of recommendation, and they did another another vote. So it's unanimously they approved the site.
Oh, they,
I sent you an email and put it into the record.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So in other words, they modified this resolution to just
Whatever
be
the
a clean
applicant- whatever
approval?
the information, whatever the discrepancy for the applicant, they resolved it and they approved it.
Okay. Okay.
Item number 4, 2019-10 BZ, 205 West 58th Street, Manhattan.
We have proof of service of initial application to officials and notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. The applicant says that the community board issued a no comment letter, but I didn't see that we got it, so I don't see any kind of
Okay.
comment from them. Not clear if this is a legalization. The last, it is? Okay, it's because the last status letter is from April 2019, so.
Yelp has reviews from October 2018.
Nice. So, okay. That's strange, because the last status letter in April of 2019 said it hadn't opened yet.
Well, maybe they can clarify.
Yeah.
Sometimes Yelp will have comments on other locations.
Right, yeah, it may
So
may
maybe
not
they
be
can
such
clarify,
a,
yeah.
so let's just make sure. We do have DOI, fire department issued a letter of no objection. And maybe because they didn't, we don't know whether, I don't think they inspected, oh, they did inspect, yeah. The PA unit inspected the space and confirmed that a public assembly permit is not required. I don't know whether they found it operating or not. Okay.
I had a question. It wasn't clear from the statement as to what kind of exercises are provided, specifically my question being any weights being used. Seems like it's an all-out cardio with a DJ. So, and they're providing a box-in-a-box construction, so
Yeah,
that should be fine, but I just wanted a clarification.
okay. I think it's little weights, based on what I looked up when I saw this, is the 305 Fitness seems to have like lots of people jumping up and down and, you know, kind of
Okay.
calisthenic.
Yeah, in the photos I didn't.
Yeah, and I didn't see weights in any of the sort of videos, but I don't know if it's a video of this place or it's just generally what they do. Okay.
Okay, item number 5, 2019-34 BZ, 2527 East 104th Street, Manhattan. This is the Reese School.
Yes. Okay, we have proof of service of initial application to officials and of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. Community Board recommends approval. This is a 7221 variance for a school serving special needs children from kindergarten to the 8th grade. The proposal is to add 3 stories to the existing 5-story building and requesting waivers for height and setback. I note that the existing building complies with the zoning resolution for an R72 and has a 36-foot 4-inch rear yard. So I just comment, like, the building's already functioning at a disadvantage because they opted not to build the 6 feet out. So now it's like all the floors are a little bit short on space that way. Maybe they did that because they wanted the play yard to be deeper. I don't know why. So if I understand correctly, the use of spaces on the existing 5 floors, which have been modified over the years to accommodate program requirements, which resulted in the loss of certain programs, will not change. So they had spaces that were built for a particular purpose, they modified the purpose, and they're going to continue to use that space in that modified way, instead of in most cases, bringing it back to how it was originally designed. So the additions of the 6th and the 7th floors are to accommodate the needs of the 7th and 8th grades, if I understand correctly, while the 8th floor is for physical and occupational therapy. So I don't understand and so there's things where I'm looking at the program, like, based on all the things we know about schools, there are program elements that seem to be missing. So the first is, there was a cafeteria, which had on the 2nd floor, and was replaced by a science lab. It's going to continue to be a science lab, so where do the kids eat? I didn't find any prep rooms for food, because the science lab had a prep room, but now having, if everybody remembers what it's like, you use this prep room for science labs where you put dangerous chemicals together and then stuff happens, right? So they don't actually show any prep rooms or any cafeteria. When I was in elementary school, we ate in our classrooms, but there was still a prep room where the food came from, like actually a kitchen, right? So I don't understand that part. The programmatic needs analysis states that rooms 318 and 518 that were originally to be a library multimedia room and a staff lounge and another meeting room were repurposed as classrooms. And it states that those repurposed classrooms are actually too large for that purpose. However, the proposed plans continue to show those room 518 as a classroom. So there's a disconnect between the descriptions of program needs and what I'm seeing on the floor plans. Room 418, which is the same size as 318 and 518, and was formerly the music room, has converted to a classroom. It's also still shown as a classroom in the proposed, so I don't understand, if they're too large, then why aren't they bringing those back to the original intentions and creating smaller classrooms on the addition? So I didn't really get that. The programmatic needs report also states that all 15 existing classrooms are undersized, although there is no proposal to enlarge the existing undersized classrooms. So again, I'm confused by the size requirements. They say they have 3 different kinds of size requirements: 8 students to 1 teacher, 6 students to 1, and sometimes 12 to 1, but the 12 to 1 classrooms are less frequently needed because it's really too many kids to work with. So I'm confused about how they're deciding how many of which kind of proportions they need and why they're continuing to hold on to the too many 12 to 1s when it seems like they need more 8 and 6 to 1s. And the report also states that the science lab in room 215 is overbooked, yet the proposed leaves it in room 215. So is it overbooked because it's not only a science lab, they're using it for something else, and they just need a devoted science lab? I didn't understand that. And again, where do the students eat? Will the spaces in the Heckscher building adjacent continue to be used, or is the whole idea to move everything out of that adjacent building? And if the proposal is not to increase enrollment, then it seems that there are more 7th and 8th grade classrooms in the proposed than there were before. They should explain that. However, the classrooms on the existing aren't designated by grade, so it's difficult to tell. And maybe, so in some schools we look at, they don't have grade designations. The classes move all around for different reasons. So maybe it's only the 7th and 8th grade that gets designated, but up until then, you move around for different reasons. They really need to explain that. They need to explain the area at the front of the building on the 8th floor that has 3 circles in it. I don't know what that space is for. It doesn't have a title. It's in the required setback area, so it makes it even more relevant to our review. They need to explain how the sizes of the physical therapy and occupational therapy spaces were determined at the 8th floor, because there's this kind of big space around which are rooms, and we know that occupational, or say physical therapy uses equipment, but they don't show any of it, so we can't really tell what's going on. And then with respect to the roof as a play area, there is no elevator access, but there's a handicap toilet, so that's confusing. So how do disabled students get to the roof? Anyway, I don't think you're allowed to have a roof that doesn't have access by elevator, have a play roof. And also the question is, did the EAS look at noise issues and maybe even air quality with respect to the play roof? Take it away.
Want me to give? Okay. So just a couple of clarification I would need. One is to clarify in the statement of finding that the existing 21,040 square foot is the gross floor area, because the zoning floor area is 15,756 square feet per zoning chart, so there needs to be some consistency in that. Also state the proposed total floor area and the FAR in the statement of facts. Those are not clear. I was comparing the proposed with the chart that was, the floor plan that was provided with all the current uses of the space, and I was of the understanding that the existing spaces that are being repurposed currently to fit the programmatic need are going to be reverted back to the original space, especially like the third floor plan has a lot of shared spaces which were meant to be used for specific programs. So I based on the labeling of it, so that's kind of what I assume, so it might be helpful if they can clarify that.
I think some things were reverting back, like the offices were reverting back, but that was where, like, the science lab is still the science lab.
Right.
So, like that.
So in the statement, somewhere it stated that the food is provided by DOE and it is served on the ground floor, it seems. And they showed a photograph which shows like their refrigerated things that are located on the ground floor. So my question was, it wasn't clear from the statement where the meal is served. Is it served in the classrooms, in the gym, or where are they located? I thought the program that they have stated and their intended goals and the need was very helpful in understanding what they're proposing. Basically, they're trying to consolidate most of the service spaces on the 6th, 7th, and 8th floor and minimize traveling within the building over many floors and outside the building, which I thought was very helpful and clear to me. And I think from the stacking plan, it does seem that it does minimize the traveling. But it was not clear from the master schedule the utilization of service spaces, especially the physical therapy spaces. And I also would like to understand the utilization of the gym and the proposed PT space. I had the same question as what are those three circular things and how are those usages, how is the usage of the PT space and the gym, how do they overlap and in terms of the scheduling and others. So those were just my questions. Okay.
I had a question about the minimum and average classroom sizes. They seem to say that the sizes should be between 450 and 550 square feet based on the New York City School Construction Authority guidelines for special education classrooms, but they don't say whether or not the New York City Construction Authority guidelines are for a certain number of students per class, and whether or not that certain number of students per class is different from what they're proposing here at this private school. So it might be helpful if they drill down to a minimum square footage per student, per special education student, for us to figure out whether the classrooms are appropriately sized, especially since even though they do talk about the minimum approaching 550 square feet, almost all of the existing classrooms are far smaller, and 2/3 of the proposed classrooms are around 500 square feet, but there are two on each floor that, or one or two on each floor that are actually smaller.
Yes.
And they don't really state why.
Great, okay. Great. Anything else? Nope. Thanks. Okay.
Item number 6, 2019-39BZ, 2311 East 4th Street, Brooklyn.
Okay, we have proof of notice of hearing to official and neighbors. I didn't actually make a note about the proof of service. Not sure. Community board, though, did get service. Community board recommends approval with 2 opposed. We have 1 letter in support. The existing house is only 1 story and really small. The proposed house is enormous, but within the permitted FAR. I personally question why this is not simply a tear down and the construction of a complying house with proper side and rear yards. This is where I always get concerned that in effect it will be a tear down. On retention of existing material, this is only a 1-story house, but it looks like the cellar is being excavated and the first floor dropped 3 feet. And the attic floor is also not in the same place, so that doesn't leave much to be retained. They need to explain how this is an existing house to be enlarged and how the house won't fall apart during construction. You know, you take out the base and you take out the top, and there's nothing to hold the little sticks that run vertically. So they need much more on that. The proposed rise is 3 stories, reducing the rear yard to 20 feet at each floor without justification. Adjacent properties are shown on the site plan sitting back 29 feet and 26 feet for 2 stories each. So they need to pull the 2nd and 3rd floors all the way back or justify why there should be any waiver on those floors at all. There is 0 reason why the attic level cannot comply with the 30-foot rear yard requirement. I don't see how the bedroom facing the 11-inch side yard is legal. It has windows facing an 11-inch side yard. The survey shows the side yard is actually 9 inches, not 11 inches. So they have to explain that. The building is higher by 4 feet than the neighbors for no apparent reason. They should lower the building height to 32 feet. Although the FAR is as of right, this proposal is one of only 2 other houses in the entire 400-foot radius that will have as much floor area as this one. This is the result, of course, of the much larger lot size here in this case, but our waivers actually facilitate that floor area. The notice of comments asks for a demonstration that the predominantly built-up area regulations apply to the site. I didn't see that provided, and that's why there's so much floor area, because it's assuming predominantly built-up area. A frontage study was also done, and I'm happy that it was provided in response to the notice of comments without having to wait for the board to ask for it. On the other hand, other information was requested in the notice of comments that was not provided and which would have been useful in understanding the project. I just want to remind the applicants that they should understand that the purpose of the notice of comments is to expedite the hearing review process. It's not idle requests on the part of the project managers. They know what to anticipate, and if you provide it, you can speed up your review. So, any other comments?
2 comments. No narratives were provided with the rear yard waiver or any maps that were provided that would help us understand why the waivers are of that depth. Also, they are seeking a waiver of the open space when they're proposing a 48% open space when the minimum required is 45%. So I don't think they need that. And I also question the building height. It is going to be quite a tall building compared to the neighborhood. In the front especially.
Okay.
I found a proof of service. Do you want to see it? Of initial application?
Yeah, I may have just forgot to make a note of it. But
It's in file.
it's proof we
but
have,
if you
okay.
want,
Okay.
I can email it to you.
No, it's okay. I may have just missed the notation. Usually I'll make a mark, I'll indicate that I didn't find it, and here I just think I just forgot to note it. Okay.
We're done?
Yeah.
Item number 7, 2019-49BZ, 221 North 14th Street, Brooklyn. It's a PCE.
We have proof of service of initial application to officials and of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. Community Board recommends approval. It's unclear from the plans, this is quite a strange application, actually. It's unclear from the plans what the floor area of the PCE is, and they are excluding a small area on the right of the first floor from the PCE permit. I don't understand how you distinguish what's the PCE area from what's not the PCE area. This is a rock climbing gym. It's also unclear how access to the as-of-right use or claimed as-of-right use is accomplished. It depends on access through the PCE. And I have to say, while it's clear that the ZRD1 that was provided allows the climbing area that's on the exterior to be treated as an amusement use 13A. I don't read the ZRD1 as concluding that the interior portion of the facility is use group 12A. They attached to their ZRD1 request a ZRD1 from 2010, where there's a comment from whoever, I can't remember who the commissioner was at the time, who said that the interior space meets the definition of a physical cultural establishment. And I didn't see, I think this is Commissioner Pavani who responded this last time. I didn't see him saying, yeah, I agree with you, this is a 12A. So I'm reading that as requiring the entire interior to receive the PCE, and that only the exterior is considered 13A amusement. I also thought the plans were hard to figure out where's the exterior, where's the interior. So that needs to be clarified, because it's kind of like you penetrate into the building and then you come into this other space, and I couldn't tell if that space is outside with like a fence or something else, so they need to clarify that. We do have DOI, and we have a fire department letter of no objection. The building isn't built, so no. Anybody else?
It has a roof, right?
Yes, the climbing is going on the roof. That part I get,
Right.
right? And the building is being enlarged in a way to create more area on the roof for all the climbing.
For the heights.
Yeah, but they have an interior climbing school, because obviously in January, you're not, I guess, you're not doing exterior climbing.
Move on.
Yeah.
Item number 8, 2019-50BZ, 116 Duane Street, Manhattan.
So this is a legalization. I don't know when it opened. We have proof of service of initial application to officials and of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. We need also to post notice. The applicant needs to post notice in the building lobby, since it's a legalization and there are residential neighbors above.
Okay.
The community board recommends approval, or rather its phrasing is it doesn't oppose. We have DOI. Fire department requested clarification of the uses in the building, to which the applicant responded on August 6th. They said the cellar is for PCE storage, and the PCE has no access to the subcellar, and they've modified the Schedule A. They've amended the Schedule A. To clarify this, and I don't know if fire department was aware this was a legalization when they issued their comment letter, which wasn't a final determination anyway. The applicant states that punching bags are to be hung on freestanding structures not attached to the walls, and that the ceiling has been treated with acoustical material. But, you know, a freestanding structure, though not attached to the walls, sits on the floor, and the floor transfers the vibration to the walls. So the way that you separate vibration is that the floor is not attached to the walls. So I don't know whether that's the way it was done, but certainly, since it's a legalization, upstairs neighbors will know whether they can feel it.
I had similar question with regards to the residence notification. I did want to ask, why is there so much storage space?
Yeah.
There's the entirety of the cellar and there's additional storage space on the mezzanine.
Right.
So I just wanted to get a sense of it. I did go to the site, I did see the freestanding structure. It is it's not hanging from the wall, it's like a structure standing by itself. I don't think the building is ADA accessible. There is a great difference from the curb level to the building entrance. So that was just a...
It opened in October 2016. It's on the community board resolution.
Okay, thanks. Opened. Okay.
Move on.
Yeah, so they need to give us information about the ADA accessibility. We've had some of these where there's a call button on the outside and somebody comes, or they have to install a ramp. Depends on what the grade change is.
Not significant. It didn't appear significant.
Okay.
Item number 9, 2019-61BZ, 1370 East 24th Street, Brooklyn, special permit.
Yeah. Okay, we have proof of service of initial application to officials and a notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. Community Board recommends approval. We have 3 letters in support. On the threshold question, the demolition plans don't match the proposed plans in terms of linear footage of walls to be retained. Applicant needs to provide an outline around the demolition drawing of the proposed enlargement. So you take the demo drawing and you draw what the proposed enlargement is, and then show on the proposed plan the outline of the existing house. And going forward, we're going to modify that sample drawing to show that that's required, because I can't tell you how many of these demo drawings I look at, and they look nothing like the proposal. So I like to understand the justification for the 20-foot rear yard incursion at the second floor. Adjacent neighbors are shown on the survey at 2.5 stories with complying rear yards, contrary to the figure ground rear yard study that's provided. And the survey is much more reliable than a figure ground that comes through these various databases. The figure ground shows the site backs up to a complying yard. So the second floor has to pull back to 25 feet, and there's more than ample room to do so. The addition in the rear in plan is frankly very awkward, since there is no straight line extension on that side. What the proposal is to fill up the rest of that side yard to the point where it's still legal and then build back. And this is just one of my lamentations about bad architecture, frankly. I wish the architecture actually paid attention to the architecture of the existing building when there was an addition made. Notably, the axonometric, the architect knows it. They provided an axonometric taken from the side that doesn't reveal this awkward condition. But I can say at least the addition isn't overtaking the existing roof line like it often does, where it kind of like eats the house. The addition is in the back. So the offensive architecture won't be as visible to the street.
I just had one comment, and that is, it's regarding consolidation of information. Statement of fact on page 3 has a chart which indicates that both side yards are non-complying. As a matter of fact, it's only one side yard that is non-compliant.
Anything else?
Is that it?
Uh-huh.
This concludes the public review session for August 12, 2019.
Yay.
So which one is expanded
In the complying side here. In the complying side here.
we talked, citations and annexes